Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So please, you can use the text tab here to post your comments because probably I will not be able to hear you if you are talking because I'm streaming from here. So if you have questions, you have concerns, please make sure you drop your text or your comment on the text bar there. So my first, just to see that you are in attendance, please greet back. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, hello. I can see Kelvin Banda is in. Kelvin Banda says, "All right, sir." Jordan, good to know that you are connected. Jordan says, "Good afternoon, sir." Let's see how many are connected. Please say something in the text chat in the text bar there. Let's see what you have to say this afternoon before we start our class. Okay, Derek Kalengachi Chindefu says present. Kanji Nana, good to know that you are connected. Judy Tembo, good to know that you are in. Sungani Kaonga, Leah Lungu, good to know that you are connected. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I want us to look at the market, and specifically, I want us to look at the demand and supply. When we are talking about the market, it's always important to understand the components of the market. Before you come up with the market, you first need to understand the behavior of consumers as well as the behavior of suppliers in the market. The first thing that we are going to do is to look at the demand side of the market and maybe do a brief analysis. Now, I have a small board with me here where we are going to show our calculations of how we determine the equilibrium in the market. Join me as I bring up the presentation, and I'm hoping that I will be able to share my screen for this presentation. Okay, my screen sharing is disabled. Okay, so it means I'm going to rely on this small board here. Hope you all be able to see. Let me just adjust, actually move my headsets because I'm able to speak without getting any interruption from your end. I will be relying on your text box there. Let me just create a good platform that we're going to use. Okay. Okay, please confirm if you're able to see this part of the board. Let me see the comments there. Say we can see if you're able to see it. Yeah. Okay. Let me see who has seen. So we can see. Okay, good. Okay, so when we are talking about the market, the first thing that we need to understand is first how we graph the market, how we show it using a model. So we plot quantity, okay? We plot quantity. I hope this side is also visible. I don't know whether you're able to see. Let me use just Q because here you're able to see. Let me try to gauge here. Okay, you're able to see. Let me try to do this. Okay, good. So we have quantity here. And then we have the price here. Now, in the market, when you plot price on the vertical axis and the quantity on the horizontal axis, it means you are plotting the inverse. So if you looked at the outline earlier, you would have seen, probably you've seen where it was saying inverse demand and direct demand. So if we are plotting price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal axis, it means we are plotting the inverse of either the demand or the supply. Now, conventionally, the demand curve is downward sloping. There are other structures that we're going to see later on, or other forms of demand. For example, the vertical, and we'll explain why demand will be vertical in such an instance. So if we look at this clearly, we are seeing that this graph tells us the inverse relationship that exists between price and the quantity demanded of an item. I'm going to pick 2 points here, A and B. And associated with A, let's call this P1 and Q1. Associated with B is a P2 and Q2. When you are at point A, you will see that the price at A, if you compare it with the price at B, the price at A is higher, okay? So we can say higher, okay? Then at B, we can say it's lower. When you go to point B, comparing it with point A, the quantity is higher, while at A it is lower. Okay, so it means if you look at this, there is a higher price associated with a lower quantity at point A. When we go to point B, there is a lower price associated with a higher quantity, which means that there is an inverse relationship, okay, relationship between price and quantity demanded. So we see that graphically, we can display this relationship, and we can see that a higher price at point A is associated with a lower quantity demanded, while at point B, a lower price is associated with a higher quantity demanded, which shows that there is an inverse relationship or a negative relationship between price and the quantity demanded of an item. And from this, clearly, we can see that we can then state our law of demand, which says that holding other factors constant, okay, holding other factors constant, the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. And the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. Now, we are holding other factors constant because on price is not the only factor that affect the demand of an item. There are other factors such as the income of the consumer. Let me just wrap this part here. Okay, so such as the income of the consumer. Okay, we also have price of related goods. Okay, we also have number of buyers in the market. This will affect the demand for a consumer. Okay, we also have expectations and so on. So these are some of the key determinants. Let's also add test here. Okay, so each of these will have a different impact on the demand, and these factors specifically, they will affect the entire demand curve. In other words, they will change the position or the location of this demand curve to a new location. While if we are looking at the on price will not affect the entire demand. It will only affect the quantity demanded of an item. Are we clear so far? If you have a question, please text the question there. Let me read it and let me pick it up from here. Are there questions? Okay, so Daliso says it's clear for him. Okay, so let me now take, this is the demand curve. We can also show the same relationship using a demand schedule. Now, a schedule is simply a table that shows the relationship between price and the quantity demanded. Or simply put, it's a table that shows the amount of a commodity that buyers wish to buy at a given point, a price level, or at a series of possible prices. So we can have a schedule where we are plotting the price of a commodity and its associated quantity demanded. Let's assume numbers here: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Remember, we said that there is an inverse relationship between price and the quantity demanded of an item. To keep that relationship valid here, we need to also assume numbers which will now be reducing or descending as you are moving. So we can say we start from 10, we can assume 8, we can assume 6, we can assume 4, we can assume 2. So you see that as the price is increasing, the quantity demanded will be reducing. Or as the quantity demanded is increasing, the price of a commodity will be reducing. Look at that from these associations, okay? If you do the mapping, 1 is mapped with 10, 2 is mapped with 8, 3 is mapped with 6, 4 is mapped with 4, and 5 is mapped with 2. So as you are increasing your price level, your quantity demanded is reducing. Okay, so this is a demand schedule. The other way that we'll use to show our demand or the relationship between price and quantity demanded is using a demand function. Now, I'll first show a general demand function, which will be presented by Q equal to A minus BP. Okay, so from here, clearly you see that if if A is a constant, or let's say it's a positive integer, okay, positive integer. B is also a positive integer. So if A and B are positive integers, then it means that the demand function will be displayed using Q equal to A minus BP. And this negative here is an indication of the negative relationship that exists between price and the quantity demanded. If you increase the price, given this negative relationship, the quantity demanded will reduce. Let's try to add numbers there. Suppose we have a function Q is equal to 5 minus 3p. So from here, we can see that again, this negative here tells us that there is a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. Try to think of any number, any say price level. Start by maybe putting 0 here. If price is equal to 0, what would be the Q? If price is equal to 0, what would be the Q? Let me see that in the comment box. If price is equal to 0, what would be Q? Rabson Zulu says 5. That's correct. So Q will be equal to 5. And if price is equal to 1, what will be Q? Okay, so that's how I can see clearly from the other angle. Okay, so we're saying 2, and that's very true. If price is equal to 1,
then quantity will be 2. Okay, and if price is equal to say 2, then you will see that now your quantity will be negative, which will now be an economic nonsense. It won't make sense here. So it means we can actually make our analysis from these two. So we see that as we are increasing the price from 0 to 1, our quantity demanded is reducing from 5 to 4. Hence, we have showed 3 ways in which we can display our demand. One is by a curve, showing a demand curve. Second, we'll use a schedule. Okay, schedule. Okay, schedule, and then we've used an equation or a function. The other way is just in words. Okay, you can actually describe your demand in words using the law of demand. Law of demand. So any of these that you use, you will be able to show that inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded of an item or of a commodity. I'll pause here. I invite questions. Any questions? Is there anyone with a question? If it's clear, please type clear. We proceed. Is it clear? Okay. Someone says it's clear. Okay, clear. So we have established one side of the market. The other side we have is the supply side of the market. Now, a traditional supply function or a supply curve is upward sloping. So we have quantity supplied here. Quantity supplied. So we take the upward sloping curve, okay, and we label it supply. And here, let's assume 2 points again. We have point A and point B. Point A is associated with P1 and Q1. Point B is associated with P2 and Q2. Again, let's make the same analysis. At point A, compared to point B, we see that price is at a lower point, so lower. Quantity is also lower. When we go to point B, we compare point B to point A, price is above, so we can say higher. And quantity is also above, so we say higher. So we see that a lower price is associated with a lower quantity supplied, and a higher price is associated with a higher quantity supplied, meaning that there is a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied of a commodity. And this brings us to the law of supply, that if we hold all other factors constant, the higher the price, the higher the quantity supplied. And this is because with a higher price, producers will be more motivated to produce more units because they know should they sell all the units, they will make a lot of profit. And as such, when they see a price going up, they will look at the market and see how many units they will bring in or bring on the market. Therefore, we conclude that there is a direct, okay, or positive relationship between price and the quantity supplied. Okay, let me use QS. So there is a positive relationship or direct relationship between price and the quantity supplied. And take note that the supply curve can start, it's not always the must that it should start from, supply curve can start even from the origin. okay, depending on the type of the commodity. So you can even start from the origin, or it can start from anywhere. So you should always be careful when you are drawing the curve. First, start by looking at the intercepts that you have. So look at your function and then read your intercepts and then plot. So I'll show you how we can plot our demand curve before we go into questions. Any question on the relationship between price and quantity supplied? If it's clear, type clear, we proceed. Okay, clear. All right. Now, we have looked at a curve. We also have a supply schedule. The same way we analyze the consumer, we can also do the same for the producer. The producer will also have a supply schedule, which is a table showing the amount of a commodity that suppliers wish to release on the market for each possible price level. So let's have this here. So we have the price and the quantity supplied. Again, we can assume 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So because we said that there is a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied, we can as well assume numbers, but this time around, numbers will be increasing as we are moving down. So we can start from 2, we can go to 4, 6, 8, and 10. So you'll see that as the price is increasing, the quantity supplied of an item is also increasing, which shows that there is a positive relationship between the price and the quantity supplied of an item. You can actually observe that by doing a mapping. So you see that 1 is mapped into 2, 2 is mapped into 4, 3 is mapped into 6, 4 is mapped into 8, and 5 is mapped into 10. So you see that the more the price is increasing, the more the quantity will be supplied on the market. Any question on the supply schedule? If it's clear, type clear, we proceed. Okay, so someone says clear, 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 clear. Okay. The next way to show the price quantity supplied relationship is to use an equation, and we call this a supply function. We can also do the same, and we can use letters just to show that relationship. Now we use C plus DP, okay? Where again here, we are assuming that C is a positive integer, okay? Or a positive real number. D, let's assume it's also a positive real number or a positive integer. Okay, so we're assuming that C and D are positive. So if these two are positive, it means that the more the price goes up or the higher the price, the higher will be the quantity supplied on the market, which shows that there is a positive relationship between price of a given commodity and its quantity supplied. Okay, let's use numbers. So we have Q is equal to, we use the same 5. This time around, we put plus 3P. So we see this plus here shows that there is actually that positive relationship between price and quantity supplied. And from here, if we can assume a schedule, so we start from P equal to 0. If P is equal to 0, what will be the quantity supplied? Let's put the answer in the comment box. What will be the quantity supplied at P equal to 0? Good. Okay, so it will be 5. When P is equal to 1, what will be the quantity supplied? Okay, people are still typing 5. We are now at P equal to 1. Okay, I'm still seeing 8 and 5 again after 8. I want to see which one people are responding to. Okay, 8, 8, 8. Okay, then we are following. So when P is equal to 1, it means the quantity supplied will be 8. Let's end at P equal to 2. When P is equal to 2, what will be the quantity supplied? 11, 11. I'm seeing 8 coming after 11. Okay, 11, 11, 11. Okay, then we are following. So when P is equal to 2, quantity supplied will be 11. And clearly from this, you can see that the higher the price, the higher the quantity supplied. The more price is increasing, the more suppliers are being more motivated to release more units on the market, and therefore the quantity supplied increases on the market. So again, here we can conclude that we can use 4 ways to display the relationship between the price of a given item and its quantity supplied. The first one is to use a supply curve. The second one is to use a supply schedule. Okay. The third one is to use a supply function or equation. And the fourth one is to use words, okay, such as the law of supply. So whichever you use here, it will send the same message that you are talking about the positive relationship between the on price and the quantity supplied. Any questions so far? If it's clear, please type clear and we proceed. Okay, I can see very clear. Then someone types 11. Okay, others are still getting the response, giving the response for the previous question. Okay, great. Now, this is indirect. So we have direct, okay, versus indirect. When we are talking about the direct relationship, I'll use the equations. So if you have a function Q is equal to A, say minus BP for the demand curve, this is a direct demand function. The inverse of this demand function is to make P the subject of the formula. Okay, so if we make P the subject of the formula here, what will this function be? So P is equal to what? Please complete the function. What will it be equal to? If we make P the subject of the formula, what will it be equal to? Please post your question. Your response. So P will be equal to Q plus A. Robson. Try rearranging again. Okay, so P is equal to A minus Q over B. Yes, that's correct. But try to simplify it. I want those brackets to go. So Q, okay, Daliso has written. Please try to redo that again. Try to redo that and send it again. P is equal to Q over A minus B. Not true. Okay, so let's do it together. If we are here, we have Q is equal to A minus BP. If we want to make P the subject of the formula, we get negative BP, take it the other side of the equation, it will become positive BP. Then this will be equal to, remember, our A has remained here. Then we take the Q to go the other side. Now Q here is positive, so when it crosses the equal sign, it will become negative Q. And then we divide through by B. So even here by B, even here by B, meaning that our inverse demand function will be A over B minus 1 over BQ. Okay, or you can write it as P is equal to A over B minus Q over B. This becomes our inverse demand function. Is it clear? Or are there questions? Please, if it's clear, type clear. If there are questions, ask. It's clear now. Okay, good. So this is the inverse for the demand, and this is the direct for the demand. Then we have the supply. So supply Q is equal to C plus dP. What will be the inverse supply function? What is the inverse supply function? If you make P subject of the formula, what will this be? Please drop your answer in the text box. Okay, so we have someone giving us C, someone has given us P. Q over D minus C over D. That's correct. Okay, so for those who've gotten it wrong, so what we do is here, remember we want to make P subject of the formula. So what we'll do, we'll leave dP the same side and take C the other side, meaning we have Q minus C is equal to a dP. And then we divide through by D, by D, by D, so that your P will be equal to Q over D minus C over D, or P is equal to negative C over D plus Q over D. Is it clear? If it's clear, type clear. If you have a question, type your question. Okay, clear, 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 clear. Okay. Let's now look at the market. We've looked at the demand and supply in isolation. Let's look at the market. So just to start to show it graphically, we said that on the horizontal axis, we plot quantity. We put quantity here, and on the vertical axis, we put price. And we said that this is an inverse. structure. So if our supply curve is upward sloping and our demand curve is downward sloping, then equilibrium in the market, we say that the market is in equilibrium if demand is equal to supply. And the associated price is called the equilibrium price. The associated quantity is called the equilibrium quantity. And the point where the two are meeting or intersecting, we call this point the equilibrium point. Okay, so we have the demand supply curve, the demand curve, and then the two are meeting at point E, which we are calling the equilibrium point. The associated price is called the equilibrium price, and the associated quantity is called the equilibrium quantity. Remember, when you put your level here, this quantity will have a different name because associated with it, we have this level of a price and that level of a price. So meaning this price is not the new price here, P1 and P2. These two prices are not equilibrium prices. And the quantity will not be the equilibrium quantity. If on the other hand, you had the price, just one price below, okay, if you had the price here, it means again you have two levels of output or quantity. So we have Q1 and Q2. At a price of P1, there is a Q1 quantity and Q2. And this tells you that Q1 is on the supply side, and therefore we call this the quantity supplied, and the Q2 is on the demand, and we call this the quantity demanded, meaning that there is a gap or a shortage in the market if price is set below the equilibrium. So only at a point where demand and supply are equal are we going to find the equilibrium point. Are we clear? Or are there questions before we take this to functions? I can explain again. Either where do you want me to explain again? Please just specify. On shortage, okay. Is there any other comment? So on shortage, someone says repeat. Kindly go through once again. Okay. When we are plotting, we want to show equilibrium. We said we put quantity on the horizontal axis and the price on the vertical axis. From the two theories that we've built or that we've examined, we saw that demand is downward sloping while supply is upward sloping. Now, what we want to check is this point where demand and supply are meeting, this point here, the point of intersection. If we label it point E, this point E here is called the equilibrium point. So I'll use E star just to indicate, or you can use E, whatever symbol, but it is called the equilibrium point. Associated with the equilibrium point is quantity. This quantity here is called the equilibrium quantity. And the associated price is called the equilibrium price. So what I was saying is that if price was to go below the equilibrium, let's call this price P1, you'll see that at this price level, the market will not be in equilibrium. Suppliers will only be supplying Q1 units on the market. Remember, when we were looking at the law of supply, we said that the lower the price, the lower the quantity supplied. And the higher the price, the higher the quantity supplied. In this case, our suppliers have responded by reducing the quantity supplied because prices have gone below what they were getting from the market. On the other hand, consumers are now motivated to buy more because the commodity which they earlier bought at a higher price can now be bought at a lower price. As such, we see that the quantity demanded is more than the quantity supplied. Now, because we have more quantity demanded than we are seeing from the quantity supplied, it means that the gap, let's call this point A and point B. The gap between point A and point B is what we call the shortage in the market, or the excess demand. Okay? Excess demand. In other books, you find it written or called the shortage. Is it clear now? Please indicate if it is clear this time around. Mwape Kalunga, is it clear? You wanted me to explain on the shortage. Is it clear? Okay, Mwape says it's clear. Derek? And Kelvin, you wanted me to repeat. Is it clear now? Okay. Is excess demand same as loss? Okay, no, it's not the same as loss. So when we are looking at the loss, we look at it from a different angle. So maybe when we look at consumer surplus and producer surplus, you will see what we mean when we talk about loss in consumer welfare as well as producer welfare. So at this point, all we are seeing is that there is a shortage in the market, and this shortage has been caused by the reduction in the price of a given commodity below the equilibrium price. Okay. I'm clear. Okay. All right. We have looked at the side of a shortage. Let me try to redo this part. Okay. So I have my graph again, where we are saying that equilibrium is at Q star. Suppose this time around, price went up above the equilibrium. Let's call this P2. If price was set above equilibrium, what will happen in the market? If you followed what I explained here when we looked at a shortage, what do you think will happen if we have price at P2 above equilibrium? Please send your comment or your response on the text box. Excess supply, that comes from Derek, okay? Surplus comes from Mwape Kalunga, okay? There will be excess supply. Okay. So when price is set above equilibrium, what will happen this time? Remember, before you do your explanations here, think about what happens when demand is plotted in isolation and when supply is plotted in isolation. We said that the higher the price, the more the quantity supplied, meaning that when prices go up, suppliers are motivated to produce more units and therefore release more output or more commodities on the market. On the other hand, from the consumer side, if the price goes up, consumers get demotivated. And as such, they respond by reducing their quantity supplied, their quantity demanded from the market. If we get this analysis and bring it here, we'll see that at a price of P2, the quantity demanded will be Q1, while the quantity supplied will be Q2. So we see that demand here, quantity demanded is lower than the quantity supplied, meaning this part here gives us the surplus in the market, okay, or the excess supply, because suppliers have responded by releasing more units on the market, whereas consumers have cut back on their purchases, and as such, we have what we call a surplus in the market. Now, what I want to show you now is how then do we get back to equilibrium? If this price is not a permanent price, how do we get back to equilibrium? Maybe before we look at how we get back to equilibrium, let's analyze equilibrium using an equation. So let's assume that we have our quantity demanded, QD, which is equal to A minus BP, okay? And our quantity supplied, QS, which is equal to C plus DP. The question is find the equilibrium price and quantity, okay? Find the equilibrium price and quantity. We mentioned that the market is in equilibrium if the quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied, or if the demand is equal to the supply. In this case, let's solve. So solution, step number one is that we need to equate quantity demanded to quantity supplied. Okay, let's call this step one. Step two is to substitute. So you put you substitute QD with this part of the equation, and then QS with that. So we have A minus BP is equal to C plus DP. Okay, so I'll leave it here. Let me see what you get. If you were to solve for P, what are you going to get as the equilibrium price? If you finish that one up, what will be your equilibrium price? Anyone who solved? The suppliers will supply more. Okay. Okay, so P is equal to Q minus C over D minus B. That's not correct, Mulala. Try again. Kelvin says where the Q. Okay. George just says it's clear. Please show me what will be the equilibrium price here? Judy says A minus C over B plus D. It would be nice, Judy, if you also include brackets somewhere so that we can read it properly. Okay, anyone who has changed? I want to see brackets so that we know what you are writing there. Okay, so step number 3. Okay, step 3 will be to rearrange this equation. So we want to make P subject of the formula. So we can take C to cross. So if C, this side which is positive, comes on this side, it means it will become negative. So this means that we will have A minus C. And this will be equal to, remember we've remained with dp, and then this negative bp will cross to go the other side. It will become plus bp. Okay, which we can rearrange and make this come this side, that and as bp plus dp is equal to a minus c. Okay, then from here we can factor out, so we can factorize. So we push P out, then we remain with B here plus D here. And this will be equal to A minus C. Okay. And if we because we want to make P subject of the formula, we divide through by B plus D. Okay. So even here by B plus D. So that our equilibrium price will be equal to A minus C over B plus D. Is it clear? If clear, type clear. If you have a question, please type your question. Okay. Clear, clear. Okay. One last person to confirm if it's clear. We proceed. Clear. Good. So take note, our equilibrium price. Let me use another marker. Our equilibrium price is equal to A minus C over B plus D. Okay, let me wrap this part here. And our equations, remember, quantity demanded is equal to A minus BP, and quantity supplied is equal to C plus DP. We have found our equilibrium price to be A minus C over B plus D. What we need next is to find our equilibrium quantity. So to find the equilibrium quantity, we substitute the value price. So you get this P, you either put it in the demand function or in the supply function. Whichever you choose will give you the same answer. The answer will be the same. So let's do that. If we remove this and put P here, what are we going to have? So Q, now we're not going to call it QD or QS because we are finding the equilibrium quantity. So we'll just label it Q star, but we'll pick any of the two. Me, I will go with the demand. So minus B, open bracket, the P is A minus C over B plus D. If we simplify this into a single fraction, what are we going to have? Let's solve and show what we are going to have. Okay. I believe it's still bent. Let me try to do this. Okay. Now the other part of the board. Okay. Yeah, maybe something like that. If we simplify this into a single fraction, what are we going to have? Anyone who solved, who simplified? Let's see what we have. Okay, there's something there. So we have C plus dp over A plus B. Okay, someone says AD plus C over D over B plus D. Q is equal to AD plus C over B plus D. So all those different solutions means that we are getting confused with our simplifications here. Let's see what others have found. Okay, let's do it together. So from here, we need to get the common denominator. So remember, this is over 1. So, and this B is a whole number, which means it's also over 1. So with this, then, it means that the common denominator will be B plus D. Okay? So 1 into B plus D will be B plus D. And B plus D multiplied by A will be A, B plus D, close the bracket. There's a minus here. So we put a minus, B, then B plus D into B plus D will be 1, meaning we'll remain with A minus C. Okay? From here, we can simplify this. Allow me to rub up here, including this same one, so that I remain with enough space. So from here, our equilibrium quantity will be equal to, now we can expand, A multiplied by B will be AB. Okay? A multiplied by D will be plus AD. Then negative B multiplied by A will be minus AB. Negative B multiplied by negative C will be plus BC. And then we divide by B plus D, which is the common denominator. From here, clearly we can see that AB and AB will cancel because this is positive, this is negative, meaning that our equilibrium quantity will be equal to AD plus BC over, okay, my marker stopped writing, let me change. So over B plus D. So this becomes our equilibrium quantity. Okay, so our equilibrium quantity, Q star, will be equal to AD plus BC over B plus D. Are we clear, or are there questions? You forgot the B. That B is part of the equation, Mlenga. So, Mulang, is that Mulanga? Kalemba. Mujara Kalemba. If you leave out a B, it means the whole solution will be wrong. So make sure that you include the B. Is it clear? If it's clear, type clear. If you have a question, type your question. Clear, 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 clear. Okay. Okay. Let's move on. So this is how we get. So remember, I've used the general demand function and general supply function. So anything else can change. So please make sure that you understand what we are doing at each and every step. Now, let's look at the function. Suppose that Q is equal to 11 minus 3p, and another Q is equal to 1 plus 2p. The question I'll ask you is, let me call this one 1, or let me call this one A, and call this one B. Between A and B, which one is a demand function? And why? Between A and B, which one is a demand function and why? Why are you choosing that as a demand function? Between A and B, which one is a demand function? Okay, so A, because there is a negative sign, okay. A, okay. We'll use this to find the equilibrium, but I have another question for you. Let's call it part C. If Q is equal to -4 plus 3P, is this a demand function or a supply function? Q is equal to -4 plus 3P. Is this a demand function or the supply function? Okay, Kalemba says supply, Mwape says demand, Musonda says supply, Lunda says supply. Okay, James is still commenting on the previous question. Okay, Kaluva says supply, Lungu says supply, Zulu says demand. I think it's supply. That's Banda. Judy says demand. Okay. Now, let me ask first, those who said supply, which part of this function led to your conclusion that this is a supply function? Those who said it's a supply function, which part of this equation led to your conclusion that C is a supply function? Price is positive, okay, plus 3P, that's Kalemba. Then Kondwani says price is positive. Okay, let me go to those who said it's a demand function. Which part of this function led to your conclusion that it is a demand function? Okay, now those who said it's a demand function, please tell us which part of this equation convinced you that it's a demand function. Okay, so the demand, okay, there we go. We have Robson. There is a negative sign showing us an inverse relationship. Okay, that's from Robson Zulu. Chabu says it's clear. We want to know which part of this function led to your conclusion that it's a demand curve or a demand function. Okay, it seems the people on the demand side are done. Okay, there's another one, because price moves with supply. Then Leah says the plus 3P made the Leah to conclude that it's a demand curve. Kalunga says it's a demand function. Function is negative. Okay, now let's conclude. This is a supply function. Okay, it's a supply function because the slope of this function is positive. What matters is the coefficient of price, or if it was an inverse function, let's assume it was written like a P is equal to -2 plus 4Q. If the coefficient of Q here is positive, it means the function is a supply function. If it is a negative, like this one, the coefficient, it means this is a demand function. So this is the one that shows us that relationship that exists between price and the quantity. So in this case, we're calling it a supply function, meaning it shows us the positive relationship between price and the quantity that is being supplied on the market. Is it clear? Those who said demand. Okay, good. Now, let's find the equilibrium price and the quantity for these two equations. Q is equal to 11 minus 3P, and Q is equal to 1 plus 2P, since we know which one is a demand, because it's not always that you'll be told that it's a demand or supply. You need to look at the signs here. So let's find the equilibrium price and quantity. If you find the answers, text your answer in the text box. Okay, so the first solution we have is a 2, E is equal to 2. So Rapson, give us the equilibrium price. So you can say P equal, okay. So write them at once. So don't write them 1, 1. I want to analyze what you're finding. So write P equal to 2 or whatever number you find, comma, Q equal to, and give us the answer in one message. So find both the price and the quantity and share your answers. Okay, so Robson finds P equal to 2 and Q equal to 5. Kaluba, that's Kalola Kaluba, finds P equal to 2, Q equal to 5. Okay, P equal to 2, Q equal to 5. Okay, Kanji, we need to find both the price and quantity, write them in one equation. Okay, so look, Lunda finds P equal to 2, Q equal to 5. Good. Okay, so the solution is P equal to 2 and Q equal to 5. So remember again, if we are just to do it together, solution, step 1, we said that quantity demanded must be equal to the quantity supplied. And from here, we can substitute. Quantity demanded is 11 minus 3P, and quantity supplied is equal to 1 plus 2P. Okay? And from here, if we make P subject of the formula, we can take 3P the other side and 1 to come the other side, meaning we'll have 11 minus 1 is equal to 2P plus 3P. And if we simplify, 11 minus 1 will be 10. On the other side, 2P plus 3P will be 5. Okay, so let me wrap this part here, because I need that. So we're saying we have 10 is equal to 5P. If 11 minus 1, 10. 2P plus 3P, 5P. So to find P, we divide through by 5. And if we do that, our P will be equal to 2. And that's how we found that equilibrium price is equal to 2. To find the equilibrium quantity, we said that you substitute the value of P into either the demand or the supply function. Now let's do that here. We'll first put it in the demand, and then later on put it in the supply and confirm that we'll get the same solution. Let's start with the demand. Q is equal to 11 minus 3P. And we're saying that P is equal to 2. So we'll have 11 minus 3 multiplied by 2. And if we multiply 3 times 2, we will get 6. Meaning we'll have 11 minus 6 here, which will give us a 5. And thus we conclude that equilibrium quantity will be equal to 5. Let's now try the supply function and see if the equilibrium quantity will also be 5. So from the supply side, we have 1 plus 2p as our supply function. Now this will be equal to 1 plus 2. Our equilibrium price is 2. So we get 1 plus 2 times 2, we will have 4. And 1 plus 4 will give us 5. And this confirms that indeed our equilibrium quantity is equal to 5. Is it clear, or are there questions? If you have a question, please type in the text box. If it's clear, again, type that it's clear in the text box. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to look at is welfare economics, the consumer and the producer's welfare. But the way we're going to do it, we'll do it on the market structure, on the market equilibrium. Okay, so let's do that. So quantity, and then we have price. We have the demand curve that is downward sloping, and we have the supply that is upward sloping. Here we have our equilibrium quantity, okay, and our market equilibrium price. We can put point A here, we can put point B here, we can put point C here, okay? So in the market, remember that the demand curve shows the relationship between the price of a given commodity and the quantity that consumers will get in the market. Meaning that at point A, consumers will be willing to pay the price up to that much. And at point B, consumers will be willing to pay a price up to P star. Actually, that's the price that they are getting from the market. From the supplier side, we notice a positive relationship between the price of a commodity and the quantity supplied. And from here, we see that suppliers are willing to sell an item at a price at point C. But what the market gives them, the price is allowing them to receive a price equal to P star. Therefore, we conclude that the difference between what consumers are willing to pay for an item, which is point A, and what they actually pay, which is P star, gives them the consumer surplus. In other words, because in the market there are many consumers, it means that at each point on the demand curve, there will be different consumers who will be joining the market to purchase a commodity, or the number of quantities will be changing the more price is reducing. Which means that if we get these small parts, these small amounts of people joining in the market, we will end up getting the entire area, this area here, that is above the equilibrium price. So the difference between what consumers are willing to pay for a commodity A and what they actually pay P star gives them the consumer surplus. Therefore, consumer surplus is the area between the demand curve and the equilibrium price, this part here. And to find that, we use the formula half base multiplied by height, where the base can be this part here and the height can be that part here. So when you find the area of this triangle, you will be finding the consumer's welfare, which we also call the consumer surplus. In addition to this, we also see that in the market, we also have producers who are willing to release a commodity on the market at a price equal to C, at point C here, but the market gives them a higher price P star. So the difference between the price that sellers are willing to accept for a commodity and what they actually get from the market gives them the producer surplus. And because again, there are many producers or many sellers on the market, at each point, as price keeps on increasing, there will be many units sold of a given commodity. Therefore, the whole of this triangle here, area PBC, gives us the producer surplus. And to find this area, you use the same formula, half base multiplied by height, because it's a triangle. If it was a rectangle, we were going to use L times B. And if it was a trapezium, we're going to use half A plus B multiplied by H. So I'll show you how this can be the case, especially when the government decides to cushion or to put to ration the amount of an item that can be obtained. If we put a line here that only Q bar can be obtained, you will see that the shape formed now becomes a trapezium. So we will analyze this later when we discuss the effect of government intervention on the market. Is it clear, ladies and gentlemen? If there are questions, please type your question. Kondwani says, I was wondering if I will use this formula in the real world. Now it makes sense. Good that you've made sense out of this, Kondwani. Mwape wants me to repeat. Okay. Let me check other questions before that. Okay, I think those were the two comments. Repeat on the producer surplus. Okay. So I'll start from consumer surplus and then end with the producer surplus. So we have quantity, we have the price. We said that conventional demand function is downward sloping. We label it D. And our supply curve is upward sloping. We label it S. So I've changed the colors now. Maybe you'll be able to see. And the point where the two are meeting, remember we called this the equilibrium point and we labeled it E star. And we said the associated quantity is called the equilibrium quantity, while the associated price is called the equilibrium price. If we can have points here at the intercept, P-intercept, let's label this one A. We already have E here. Let's label this part B. Okay, so in the market, following the law of demand, we said that if price is reducing, consumers will be more motivated to go and buy the items whose price is falling. Think of Black Friday when people go to line up, say ShopRite or Pick and Pay, when they hear that prices have been slashed. You will see people buying a lot of units. Some of them, they just even pick without even checking how many units they've picked because everyone is rushing for, say, maybe sugar. As such, when price is dropping, we expect to see an increase in the quantity demanded of an item because a lot of people will buy that commodity. And also, same people who used to buy it may decide to buy more units. As such, we are seeing that consumers will be willing to pay a price up to A to get an item. But because the market has offered them a price lower than point A, which is P star, it means that the difference between what consumers were willing to pay and what they actually pay, which is lower than what they were willing to pay, gives them the surplus. In other words, it gives them the benefit. As such, we see that if the price keeps on reducing, we'll have a lot of units being purchased by consumers because the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. And as such, when price keeps on reducing up to P, there will be a lot of consumers, a lot of units purchased, which will increase on the consumer's welfare, meaning the whole of this area becomes the consumer surplus. In conclusion, we are saying that the consumer surplus is the difference between what consumers are willing to pay to obtain a commodity and what they actually pay on the market. And in finding this area, we said we use the formula consumer surplus is equal to half base multiplied by height, the area of a triangle, because what is formed here is a triangle. And in doing so, we see that we can pick this part here to be our base and this other side to be our height. For example, if this was 10 and this price was 5 and this part was 10, it means that our area was going to be, the distance from here to here is 10, so our base was going to be 10 here. So it means we're going to have half multiplied by 10, and our height was going to be 5. So we have 10 minus 5, which was going to be 5. And if we get this, our area will be 25, meaning consumer surplus in this case will be 25. The same way we've analyzed the consumer's welfare, we can also look at the producer's welfare. From the producer's side, the producer is actually willing to accept a price of B from the consumers to release a commodity on the market. However, the market has favored the producer by charging a price P star, which is the market equilibrium price. And so we are seeing that producers are willing to accept a price up to B, but they actually get a higher price P. Therefore, the difference between what producers are willing to accept for an item and what they actually get from the market gives them the producer surplus. And because when the price is increasing, producers are motivated to supply more on the market, we are going to have a lot of units supplied at each possible price. And as such, we will have this area all covered because the price will have gone up and consumer producers will enjoy this. And this triangle here becomes the producer surplus. And in finding the area, we find again half base multiplied by height. In this case, we conclude that producer surplus is the difference between what producers are willing to accept for them to release a commodity on the market and what they actually receive from the market, which is P star in this case. And if we maintain our assumption that this is 5, the price is 5, quantity is 10, it means our base, we can pick this part, meaning our base will be 10. So we'll have half multiplied by 10, and our height will move. Let's pick this one to be, say, 3. Okay? So if this is 3, then we subtract 5 minus 3, we get 2. So this part will be 2. And therefore, it means that our producer surplus will be equal to 10, meaning 10 is the producer surplus. Then we found 25 to be the consumer surplus. In conclusion, or in totality, we conclude that total surplus is equal to the consumer's surplus plus the producer's surplus, meaning this whole area here, this big triangle, this one here, gives us the total surplus, the surplus for the consumer and the surplus for the producer. In our classic example case, we had 25 plus 10, meaning our total surplus will be a 35. Is it clear, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, for now, we'll end here. We'll resume again on Monday, where we'll now look at the effect of government intervention. And we're going to use again equations to first find the consumer surplus and the producer surplus, then find the total surplus, and then move on to find the effect of the government using the equations. Suppose that government was to impose a tax on the market, what will happen to the price and equilibrium quantity? So we'll be doing that on Monday. And then we'll also look at the effect of a subsidy and the other interventions, anything that can affect the smooth flow of the market. So we'll do that on Monday before we go to look at elasticity and the others. Then tomorrow we'll be looking at some mathematical techniques but that is not for the first year side. It's supposed to be for the second year. So please do not, if you are in first year, don't attend that class tomorrow. Okay, so I'll see you on Monday. I'll pick your question, John, on Monday. It's the first thing that I'll start with. So I'll share a link again, which you'll use to join the class. Okay, see you on Monday, guys. Madam.